and this is Tipsy Talks. Very excited to see a nice full house here. We've got Heather, who's graciously volunteered to record everything for us, and two great presenters tonight. I'm really looking forward to hearing what they have to say. If you haven't been here before, Tipsy Talks is sort of a combination between drunk history and adult show and tell, I guess, is maybe what you'd say. So very excited. This is my first time emceeing, so hopefully I do okay. Again, I'm filling in for Patrick Hurley, who's the person who originally put together the series, and it's just been super fantastic. Patrick's a really great guy. He helped me is kind of a weird word. My wife and I moved up to the NEK a couple years ago, and we were looking for a piece of land. And we really wanted to have some property and have some animals and maybe a small farm. And we didn't want to do that right away. We were afraid of going into a Hatfield-McCoy situation if we moved and the two neighbors hated each other or something. So we lived in downtown Newport for a couple of years, and we were looking for some land, and we think we finally found the perfect place. And Patrick came up to me. We worked close together up above Green Mountain Natural Foods. And he's like, Scott, I don't think you should buy that land. I was like, Patrick, why? He's like, I think there's an illegal wetland on it. And it turns out that there was a wetland that had been paved over essentially without any permits or anything. And so Patrick's the best kind of friend. He's the kind of friend that's not afraid to give you bad news. So on the one hand, I was like, damn you, Patrick. But on the other hand, he saved me an unholy amount of money and heartache. So love the guy to death. He is down in Costa Rica this week with his lovely wife celebrating their honeymoon. So they had kind of a delayed honeymoon. COVID got in the way of their original plans, and they're finally down there spending 2 weeks out of this Vermont weather and down into Costa Rica. So anyways, enough about Patrick, our first presenter tonight.
All right, well, my name is Eric Schneider, and when he said great speakers, I'm not sure Chad might be, but this is my first time ever doing anything like this. So a little bit about myself. I was born in Ohio. I moved to Vermont when I was 12 in central Vermont, where my first day, my now wife had a crush on me and told my mom 6 weeks later that she was going to marry me in 8th grade. And here I am, 47, and we have 2 kids, 2 biological kids, 2 foster kids. The foster kids have been in our life since they were 2 and 3. They're 8 and 9. They've been with us. This is our 4th time with them. So they're like my own, love them, but they're, trauma changes your brain a little bit. So they have some challenges. But anyway, so I live right here in Newport. So I guess I don't have an agenda. I didn't write anything down, but so in high school, I wanted to drop out of high school so bad. My dad begged me not to, so I finished early, and I had the great idea with $10 in my pocket to hitchhike across country, and so that's what I did. I hitchhiked across country, met a lot of great people. Got sick of it in Salt Lake City, started hopping freight trains to San Francisco, and then ended up hitchhiking back to Durango, Colorado, played in a party band for a while. I've been playing guitar for my whole life. And then went to New Orleans, and so I got back and I started working, and I didn't really know what I still wanted to do. The reason I hitchhiked across country and kind of lived with the homeless people, because I didn't have any money, is I thought compassion and understanding kind of went hand in hand, right? So I thought I wanted to work with people. That's what I thought. I'm a people person. I like people. I have empathy and all that junk. So I went back. Where was I? I think I went to visit my mom, and this girl I had a crush on, not my wife, so she's not here, but she asked me to go to New Zealand. So I said, yeah, I'm all in. So we go to New Zealand, and what do? We didn't have a lot of money, so we stayed at farm stays. And we stayed at dairy farms, and you're supposed to work 2 hours a day. They give you housing. They gave us the car. So we got to see all these non-tourist things, really, really neat experience. But meanwhile, I worked all day, and I fell in love with dairy farming. So I loved, it was all grazing, huge milking parlor, so we could milk 600 cows in less than an hour, and the sun would come up. It was just beautiful, and I loved it. And then so when I came back, I had a job at AmeriCorps in San Diego. I couldn't stay the whole time. I had to farm. I'm like, let's go. Like, I needed to do it. So I came back to Vermont, and I milked for a while, and I liked it, but I didn't love it. And then I landed on some big dairies, and I got into breeding cows, the reproduction of cattle, which was so exciting because if I could explain a little bit about it, a cow will calve, and at 60 days they'll peak in milk because the calf is trying to grow, right, in nature, like it drinks the most milk. And then as their days in milk, as we call it, get later, they make less and less milk. So a cow at 60 days might be given 150 pounds. At 300 days, it might be given 40 pounds. So I was in love with reproduction, got all these cows pregnant at the preg rate, as we call it. And on these big dairies, sometimes we'd go up 40% on milk production, which is huge, you know, millions of dollars. So I went from dairy to dairy doing that. I'd do it for 3 years. We'd go from 55 pounds to 85 pounds or 60 pounds to 90 pounds. And I kind of got excited about that challenge. I liked the numbers. I loved working with Hispanic people, like, 'cause that was the large dairies, and I don't know, I loved it. And now I'm kind of settling down at Maxwell's. I'm older with kids. I'm not moving as much, but what's the point I'm making? I don't know. I'm just telling my story.
Well, how do you increase it? You know, genetics is great.
Well, genetics are good. And then, you know, on a dairy, cow comfort and creating a culture, like with any business, a nice calm culture. Like, I'm a little slow in some ways. Like when I went over to Europe when I was 19. When I landed, I was in Germany and I had hitchhiked across country, so I was a good traveler, right? But I don't see well, so I'd ask questions. And then when I got to Germany, I didn't realize they spoke German in Germany, you know? Like, it was like, I am so American, you know? But I was, you know, 18, so you learn those things. And then another thing with, like, the Hispanic employees, to build a good culture on a dairy farm is maybe 6-7 years ago, I used to be still am, but I was a company guy. And when there's groups of milking cows, and if you mix up a group, socially, they have to learn each other. So they'll battle at the bunk, and they'll eat 25% less and drop on milk. So I would think about those things and be like, geez, like, oh, why'd you mess up? Like, I wouldn't yell at them, but I'd show my disappointment. And just a few, like 7-8 years ago, that, like, when people mess up, I'm just happy about it. And I'll tell you what, that makes a huge difference when you're just like, pat them on the back and like, we'll fix it, no problem, you know? And that calmness, like, changes the whole culture of a workplace, you know? So I never was mean or yelled, but I really, and especially the Hispanic culture, like, they don't want to disappoint any patron or FA or whatever you call it, you know? So, God, I had different things I was going to talk about, but.
Talking about the Hispanic population now is extremely important. So if you'd like to stick with the benefits of that, I'd love it.
I think the Hispanic, I mean, 99.9% of them that I've met are great people. They work really hard. There's little negotiation. They're just great people. So when I hear things like immigrants are criminal, that is not my experience in the last 25 years. Not at all, zero, zilch. I'm sure there are studies that say that immigrants are actually less likely to commit crimes because they're here to better their lives. You know what I mean? Mostly, that's my experience. But yeah. Well, thanks for coming out after yesterday. I'm not trying to get political, but I know it can be a hard time for everybody that didn't go that way. But I don't know. What else should I talk about?
How come you called your talk The Unseen?
I don't know. I was trying to figure out what to talk about. So I can't drive.
But you're cycling very well.
I can't drive, so I ride my bike to work every day, except like for 3 months out of the year I don't. I try not to because it's cold out, but as soon as I can, I bike. So I bike 80 miles a week to work and back. If you guys live in town, you'll see me walking a lot.
Why can't you drive? Is it because of your vision?
Exactly. Yep.
How blind are you?
I don't know. I'm 20 over.
I'm minus 12, but I got my contact just for tonight.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm minus 13, but
Oh, okay, we're competing.
I'm still minus. I'm still 20 over 250 with my eyes.
Okay, so we're bright people.
Yeah.
All right, so when are we gonna do a cheese business like Quebec style and French?
Let's go. I'm ready.
All right.
So,
I'm gonna ask Miss Adder,
What?
what's his name? Quack, quack, quack.
What do you think? Falafel Tipsy.
We're gonna make a cheese business in Vermont, Newport, Vermont.
do you make cheese now?
I don't.
Oh,
I'm interested because I don't like the Walmart soft, ugly bread, and I like good cheese and good.
nice. Yep.
So,
I've only been to Walmart 5 times in my life. But
okay, and I have a question about your cow. You said about something about, is there a milking limit on the cow possibility?
no, what I was trying to say is, and I probably wasn't very clear. I apologize. So
It's supposed to be a comedic thing, but now it's serious.
no,
So
but
let's talk about serious business. How long do the cow last for good milking?
well, so their gestation is 9 months, almost same as a woman,
Yeah.
maybe 9 days longer, it's
Okay.
282 days. But so you want them to calve every 12 to 13 months. So they have after 60 to 90 days, you want to get them bred back. So that way you maximize the lactation curve. And what I was trying to say is you get fresher cows closer to their when they calve, the more milk they make.
But could they last many, many years?
Well, how long does a cow last? And
In the sense of making milk or?
well, that's
dairy
one thing
milk?
the industry that we're trying to work on. So
Okay.
right now they don't last very long, but they're lasting a little longer because as genetics and
Modified.
yeah, and taking care of your cow, making them comfortable is the most profitable way to make milk. Like if they resting time, they make milk. Like if you want to be able to lay down, good clean feed, water, exercise, all that, and good milking procedure,
Drying them off at the right time so they have a little.
Well,
resting time?
that's I breed everything AI. So drying them off at the right time
Okay,
is
drying them off is.
when you stop milking them about 6 to 8 weeks before they calve. So and then you put them on a different ration. It gets them ready to calve again. It gives their udder a rest, and then they're ready to go again. So
How many cows does Maxwell Farm have at this point in time?
we have 961 mature cows and 815 young stock. So we're putting like 840 through the parlor. But I've worked at the biggest dairy I ever worked at was we were milking 4,500, and I kind of like the 800 cow size better because you can do a little everything, kind of, Like you still need a herdsman, but you're not like on the big dairies. You're just stuck doing one little thing. You're very specialized. So like I don't know. So to me, an 800 cow dairy is kind of small. You know what I mean? I don't mean it that way, but it's very manageable. I think so because I'm mechanically very weak and I'm not very strong, and so people and cows, the 800 cows size farm is nice for me, so there's not too many people. There's probably 8-9 people, and so
How many arable acres on the Maxwell farm?
I don't know, it's not my department.
Okay.
No, but I think they do like 3,000 or something.
Yeah?
Yeah.
They raise all their own feed except grain, maybe?
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Fattening?
yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. Has it been 50 minutes yet? I don't know.
So I got another question here. So given how much experience you've had in the industry, what do you think the future of dairy farming is for Vermont and places like it across the northern U.S. in particular?
I mean, sadly, they're just going to get bigger and bigger. And I'm not saying sadly as in the sense that big is bad. Big actually, they do most of them have to do a really good job. But it's sad that Heather and I, if we wanted to go be poor and milk 60 cows on a hillside, we can't. Because they won't take your milk. The co-ops, you'll see in 10 years, if you can't fill a tractor trailer, load every other day, they won't pick up your milk. I see that coming. You know what I mean? Because those co-ops are run like corporations, like DFA and all of them, Agrimark, they're just going to efficiency. That's all it's going to be. And just like, you know, the cows that when we call cows for beef, like, you know, they're very big slaughterhouses, very well done, but they don't want anything to slow them down, you know. So, like, they don't want any cows too blemished, or which is not bad, but like the mad cow disease, the BSE thing, 15 years ago, they said no non-ambulatory cows, so we could. So that was what they told the public. Any cow that couldn't walk, we're not going to take it anymore, even if it broke its leg, and that's going to help mad cow disease. Well, mad cow disease is in the spine. It has nothing to do with a leg, you know. So some of that stuff, like the dairy farm does get a little squeezed on some of the, you know, the big guys kind of regulate it, you know. So, but I mean, I think it'll be healthy in the north, I think. So we have water, and that can help a lot. But it is a little, but it is scary because like Ohio isn't that far to truck milk, so that scares me a little bit. Like at the end of the day, you could get tractor trailer loads up here in 12 hours. You know what I mean, to Boston. So if Vermont fell off the map, nobody would really care. You know what I mean? And I don't mean it care, but it wouldn't affect the supply chain that much. Sadly enough.
Do you see any feedlots here in Vermont? I haven't seen any really.
Not really, no.
That's good. You want to explain what they are external to the state? It's pretty cruel.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's all of it's cruel and not cruel. Depends on how you look at it, I guess. but yeah. So I don't have a lot of experience with feedlots, but feedlots are more just outside lots, and they feed them. You know, usually they're on a place where they walk on dirt and have cement feedlots. So, like I went to a dairy out in Oregon. They were milking 32,000 cows, and then they raised all their bulls and had 30 some thousand. And they seemed, they were outside. It was dry. They had, you know, mounds to lay on. I don't know. It's just a different
What
animal.
about like Poulin Farms that's on the Darling Hill Road?
Yeah, I think they have 5 robots, and I work at a dairy farm, but I actually preg check because one thing about not seeing well, the vets will go rectally in a cow and protract the uterus and feel for pregnancies. Well, I saw that and said, well, I can do that as well as anybody, right? So I preg check for 5 or 6 herds, and I do a couple robot herds. I don't work with Josh Poulin because, you know, but I've been to that farm. So, but it's very nice. Have you been in it?
No, I just pass it all the time because I live near there.
You should go in.
And I always worry about the cows because they don't go outside.
Yeah, I mean, so they're on sand stalls, and they can walk around. And I should, maybe I'm insensitive because I've been doing it for so long, but we make sure their feet are good. They can get up and down and go to, like those cows can go get milk whenever they want, eat whenever they want, drink whenever they want. They're not tied up. Like most of the big farms aren't tied up. If you see the go by like on Route 100 going to Troy, all the barns with the little windows, you know, those are all tied up. And like in Oregon, I farmed in Oregon. There's not one of those tie barns that exist.
Yeah.
In California, I think they're illegal. So, but that's just a changing thing. And anyone who has a tie barn, I'm not knocking you. I'm just that probably won't be in the future. You know what I mean? So.
And it ruins their feet. And if you lose your feet, you don't have a cow anymore.
Well, exercise is huge, right?
Yeah. Super.
So like in the winter, you can't let them out, and then their muscles are atrophied. You know, it's just not. It's just not as good as it could be. So.
Talk to us about your hitchhiking across the country. How long did it take you? Like,
So-
get one ride and get over there, or how many?
A lot of rides actually. So, like when I left, I got stuck in Brattleboro for like 10 hours, and I'm like, this is why kids don't run away, right? So then I got and we got to 95. Is that 95? And some hippie girl picked us up and took us to this huge house in Montclair, New Jersey.
Now, who's us? You and
Actually, my friend Justin, he's like 6'4", we both had afros, big beards. Didn't bring blankets because that would be too smart. But I had my guitar and skateboard because I skateboarded. So, yeah, so we had a little backpack, no blankets, and a skateboard and guitar. And sometimes the guitar would come in handy. Like we were in San Francisco, I was playing on a church, it was raining, car pulls up, hands me all this money and says, "Give me, thanks, I remember my good old rockin' days. I thought I was so rich, you know." I think it was $28 in ones, but we had, like for a long time, if we got any money, we never panhandled. Like you could buy like 50-cent bread and like $1 dip, like avocado dip, and it'd last us. And like in the cities, like San Francisco, St. John's, Soup Kitchen,
St. John the Divine.
I think it was John Coltrane.
Oh, that
He made these, the saxophone player, he made these soup kitchens.
No kidding.
And you go in there's this courtyard, and they serve you food, you feel like royalty, and you're sitting around all these homeless guys, and it's really cool, and the jazz is playing. And so like in the cities, you could probably eat every 15 minutes, like in some of those big cities, if you wanted.
So what year is this? What year?
96. So when I was hitchhiking, because I was born in 78, so when I was hitchhiking, everyone said, the 70s you could do this, but you can't do it now. And now I tried to hitchhike 2 years ago. I sat there in Waterbury, where I'm from, and there's no junkers down there. Like people, you need junky cars to pass you, because someone with 15 shirts, don't give you one, but someone with 2 shirts will give you one generally, you know.
Yeah.
It's just the way it goes. So, but
Did you get any truck drivers?
oh yeah, we did. Oh, sorry. So anyway, we partied in Montclair with all these rich people in New York City, and then we got out of, I don't even remember how we got out of New Jersey. That was tough. Because I think the police picked us up for, I got searched in 15 different states. Do you have any drugs or weapons? No. And they take everything out, you know. And unfortunately, I never did drugs, or I never drank a lot. So my life isn't exciting as some, but so anyway,
Remember it.
yeah, I can remember. Here I am telling the story, 20 years later. So, but yeah, we got some big truck rides, and some things that you learn, some logo. We're in the truck, and he's like, "I'll find you a ride for the next truckers," And he gets on the CB. He goes, "I got 2 hands here that could suck the paint off a broomstick." So we get out of the truck. The other guy looks at us. He's like, "I thought you were his women," and he just pulls away. I'm like, "Why didn't they?" It was the other guy who said that. So anyway, but at least he tried, Yeah, and then, some of the rides were interesting. Most of the rides were great. There was one spot that was a little different. I was in Salina, Utah, to Grand Junction, Colorado on our way back. This time I was by myself. And it's 200 miles of desert or something. It's quite a ways. And I was sitting there, and the car pulls over, and this is where thankfully I can see something, because the guy didn't have any pants on, underwear, nothing. I was just like, he's like, "Hey, I'm looking for a longer ride." He's going to Denver, which is like 400 miles, And then I sat there for a while, and then a truck pulled over, and a guy came out of the woods, pushed me down a bank, because he was drinking while I was out there. And so he kept asking the truck driver to take a leak. Then when we were at a rest stop, he said, "Chuck his bag out." So I was like happily we left him there. So that was my revenge for him pushing me. So, but San Francisco in the time, the homeless people are pretty interesting. So many Vietnam vets at the time, and it was pretty eye-opening. So I hitchhiked across country, and I felt like I'd grown up so much, and I made it back for my graduation commencement, barely, and it was pretty interesting listening to the graduation commencement after you traveled the country with very limited funds, because you're just listening to, they're still kids, and I still was too, but you had grown up so much, So, but yeah, and so many times people will say this neighborhood isn't good, then you meet the nicest people,
How long were you gone over and back?
3.5 months, yeah. And I was in Europe for 6 months. And Central America for 3 months, New Zealand for a year. So now I haven't traveled. I barely go anywhere. So with kids and family, And living in Newport, there's no public transportation, so it's a little tougher, you know.
Were you in New Zealand for working permit when they allowed it? You were probably there at the same time as my brother.
I didn't have a work permit. They paid me under the table.
At one stage, New Zealand allowed you to stay for a year under a certain age.
That would take preparation, you know what I mean? Like, I just kind of wing it.
You're a free-spirit.
Yeah.
Who never did drug.
I never did. Well, you know,
Who's
yeah.
a saint? Okay.
Well, I'm not a saint, but like smoking marijuana, I did that 4 times, makes me squint. I can't see anything, and it makes me even dumber than I am. So I'm like, why do I want to do this? And then like drinking, I probably only got drunk. Sorry, I'm at a bar. Sorry. 3 times, and I hated being hungover so bad. I'm like, I'd rather have 2 drinks or 1, act drunk. Everyone thinks I was drunk. I can go to work the next day. Perfect. You know what I mean? Like,
Is there an aspiration to be?
but I do sometimes do overnights at Journey to Recovery. So I've been exposed for people that overdose, and so that has built a lot of empathy for, you know, addiction's very human. Like a lot of the clients there have lost a child, which I couldn't imagine. You know, so it's pretty human to want to get rid of that pain, even though you know it's a bad effect in the end. But yeah, so
What got you involved in Journey to Recovery?
my friend Lila, who's the director, with high school together. So
Are you working at Journey to?
just I'm a compassion coach, so I just say like, I just support. I don't coach anybody. I just say they're worth it and all that stuff, and I get them blankets, and I stay there until they can get into rehab. So sometimes I stay there all night, then I go to work, and the next day. So, yeah, but yeah, no, but like I've always done a little bit of advocacy for the Hispanic people. Like when I first started, Vermont wasn't too good about getting Hispanic employees to the doctors, making sure they had food, you know, all that stuff. So it's come a long ways there. So
Not far enough.
not far enough, but it's better. It's better, but.
Have you heard of the Milk with Dignity
Yeah,
program?
yeah.
Migrant Justice. What do you think about that, and what do you think?
I think Milk with
Have you seen
Dignity,
it
Leche de
happening, or-
Dignidad. I think it's good. It's good. I mean, some of the farmers I'd laugh because they'd be like, "Arr," you know, they'd be all grumpy. But like, you signed up for it. Like, it's not a mandatory program. But I think it's great, and it helped us. We're not in it now, but we were.
What is it?
What is it? So it's a program that St. Albans Co-op, which was like Ben and Jerry's, the co-op there. I could be a little wrong, but they had a caring dairy program that you had to do with crops and animal welfare. And then a division off that, they would pay you, we get paid per 100 pounds of milk. So they'd pay you 20, 30 more cents if you're in this other program called Milk with Dignity, which focuses on employee equity, you know, like make sure they get paid well, they have housing, if they need basic stuff like eye protection, or, you know, it's all basic stuff. But so many dairies, they didn't pay the Hispanic guys close to minimum wage, you know, and that's not what the good dairies did, but people are doing that, and really that's not the reason you hire Hispanic labor, is to pay them cheaper. Usually that's not the case. You do it because if you and I as American, if you work 50 and I work 45, you would complain to the boss that you work 50. But if we are Hispanic and I work 60, you work 70, I'd complain to the boss I only got 60. So when there's a lot of work, the Hispanic guys are kind of a good. That's one thing that attracts us to that labor force, you know. They really want to work a lot because they're here for a short time, trying to make money to go back home, so. But, is my time up yet?
Were you blind since birth? or
Yes.
what happened?
Yeah, so it's like the trouble with my blue cones. Thank you so much for the questions, because I don't know what I'm going to talk about. I appreciate it so much.
Intimidating you and
I appreciate it. So yeah, with the blue cones, and it's an X chromosomal defect. So my brother has it, but I'm gonna skip around. From the mom, 50% of the boys statistically will have it, because as we know, women are genetically superior, right?
Thank you.
No, but in this case, for sure, because I have a Y, so if I get a affected X to make a XY chromosome, I'll have it. If I got a good X from my mom, I'd see fine. So it's a 50-50 chance. And the girls can be carriers, but they never will have what we have. And about 9 to 10,000 people in the U.S. have what I have. So there's probably not going to be a lot of research on how to fix it. I wouldn't think, but it's a pretty small portion of people. So, and probably, I don't know, 20 of them are in my family.
One thing, it's never slowed you down from anything you've wanted to do.
Well, I mean, you could complain about stuff, but what fun would that be, No, but so like I drive an e-bike. My e-bike broke down last year, and it took a year with COVID to get the motor. Oh, I was so mad I had to ride a regular bike, but halfway through I felt better, and I was like, God, I'm so glad I can't see well, because now I feel good, But God, I'd be 400 pounds if I could drive, I think. I'm already kind of chubby. I don't know what I'd do. I don't know how you guys stay thin while you drive. You must just eat less, I guess.
So how is parenting with limited vision? What's that like?
I was nervous about it at first. I'm like, my little baby's gonna choke on something. They're gonna die. I had a fear of that, but it turned out to be fine. Luckily I was hugged as a child and had good parents, and kind of came like it was pretty easy, in a sense. I mean, not always, but it makes sense. It's easy. I'm a kid person anyway. Like, I like to play with the kids. Like like I'm talking about dairy farming and all that stuff. That stuff doesn't even matter. Like making milk. Who cares? Like the kids are the most important thing really in my life. So.
How old are they?
I got 2 8-year-olds and a 9-year-old 11. So the 8-year-olds are 10 weeks apart, and then one turned 9 and 11. So, but
When are they going to go on a hitchhiking adventure?
maybe I'm taking them to New York City, and I like that. That's fun for them, I think. I love going to New York City. I love seeing all the different cultures and languages, and for some reason that turns me on. And everyone's kind of working together, and doesn't appear to be a lot of hate or so. I don't know. Like living up here, it's pretty white. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
What took you overseas?
I just had the travel bug. I don't know. I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing. Like I thought Europe would be fun, and traveling. I had hitchhiked with a buddy, and then traveling by yourself. I went to Europe, and you stayed at hostels. Like traveling by yourself, if you want to meet people, that's the way to do it. 100%. Because if I took one of you guys, we'd talk too much. I mean, not too much, but I had a notebook full of names and numbers, and I want to shout out one prop to New Zealand. Like I hitchhiked through 47 states in this country, and a lot of Europe. But in New Zealand, every single person, and I'm not lying, either gave me their phone number, offered to take them back to their house to spend the night or for lunch, because there's 3 million people and there's tough immigration laws, plus you have ocean everywhere, and no one's sick of anybody. Like I couldn't believe how friendly they were. Mm-hmm. Like I'm like, you're giving me a ride. Like usually I'm so thankful, but to go bring me back to your house for lunch, what the heck's going on? Like I don't know. You would do that?
On the hitchhiker.
Oh,
yes,
nice.
if I'm hitchhiking, and they can pick me up and take me home, and
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you lose any toes riding rails?
No, I didn't. But you did it. There's a gang. The National Train Riders of America. Those guys are nasty. They'll chuck you off the train. So you got to be careful not to get on with anybody else. So, but no, didn't lose any toes. The guys, the hobos taught us the ones that went the fastest, the ones with the bottoms on the trailer, so you don't jump in and fall through the bottom. That was helpful. But when I was in Utah, we got on the hot shot train, the 2 tractor trailers stacked on top of each other. Mm-hmm. we were heading, and my friend got cold. I can sleep anywhere. So we got out. It was totally dark out. The train pulled over because it must have been another train was coming or something. But he's like, oh, we'll run to the engine units, because the hobos told us if you get in, there's 4 engine units a lot of times. If you get into the last one, no one's there. There's heat, you know, so he's like, we got to go. As soon as I get out, train starts going. And it was cold out, and I think we must have been higher elevation. I couldn't make it. So he jumped back off. So we look around, it's completely dark. We're in Nevada. Like, nothing. There's nothing. Like, if you don't see any street lights, I mean, I don't know how far we are from town. I'm like, we're going to die out here. Like, we could easily die out here, you know? And then...
Hey, I live half my life in Nevada, so let's make it 25 years, so there's light in Nevada. There's good road, too.
Nice.
There's dirt.
So anyway, this other train pulls over, and it was like, it had trouble with the engine, so we hopped in the back one. We waited like an hour, and luckily I felt, if I'm religious, it's when good things happen. I'm like, holy crap, like, so and then we didn't have any food. We had water, but that was a slow train going to the Sierra Nevadas. It took us 59 hours to get to Stockton. So we were hungry, and I think there was like a Costco. We had like $2. We're asking, so can you just buy us bread? We looked like nobody looked at, like, they're just like, get away from us. And each got, I think we found a Taco Bell, each got a bean burrito. And man, did that hurt. It hurt. I'm like, oh, but, because not after eating for 3 days, you know, and it's like, wow, there's a brick in there. But the next morning we felt good and we were off. So and then we got to San Francisco, and I remember we were looking out at Pier 1, and we looked at each other and said, we got to go back. Like, you know, it's like always west. And then it's like, oh. But no, it was good. It was. I don't know if everyone gets that experience, you know. So.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Am I done? Thanks.
Wow, that's fantastic. So much traveling. Yeah, very, very cool. All right, guys, we'll take about a 5-10 minute break. Go grab a refill, go use the bathroom. And when we come back, we're going to hear from Stan Shop. Tell us about the Dog of Pompeii.
Yeah, hi, my name is Stan Shop. My presentation, I've titled it Dog of Pompeii, When Life Imitates Art. And in this case, art's going to be a story, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But a little bit like Eric here, I've been a traveler most of my life. Started off a little before you, Eric. I started off when I was in first grade. And several decades before you, by the way. And here is my first flight that I took, was on a prop like this. My dad had just been stationed in Germany. We were living in the DC area. He had already gone over to Germany, and my mom, with me, who was in first grade, and my 2 younger brothers, she loaded us, my uncle took us to the airport there, National Airport in DC, and we started our journey to Germany, where I think you said you spent some time too, right? Can you believe that this is what we were taking? We didn't, and
What year is this?
oh yeah, thank you for 1956. So was anyone else born by then in this room?
Yes.
Oh good, I'm glad to see. What's that?
We're older than that.
Come the airplane only has 3 engines.
I think there really is one on the other side there that you don't see.
If they all fell off, they'd be up there all night.
It took 12 hours to get from New York to Germany, and it actually had berths in it, so my mom had to put us in the berths. My youngest brother was only about 5 months old, I think. She had the bottles and the diapers in a little hat box. You know, they used to have those hat boxes that were rounded. When we had the turbulence, that hat box would roll down the aisle, and that would be my job to go get that hat box. But anyhow, I think we can go to the next one. We're heading to Germany, and when you think about it, it was about 10 years. It was only 10 years after World War II, and that church, you can't tell really, but that church was bombed out. It was being rebuilt at the time we were there. And there were a lot of bombed out buildings still in Germany. This is the Rhine River, Frankfurt. We, however, were living in what was called the Golden Ghetto, because we lived on the base and we were living in apartment buildings. It was a situation where we had six families living in one stairwell, and there probably was about 3 stairwells in this apartment building on the base. We had a lot more than the local people had across off base there, still recovering from World War II. That's why they called it, I think the sociologists called it the Golden Ghetto. And of course we could shop on base, so we were getting all the food that we needed and buy nice items in the exchange. I think we could go on to the next one there. This is kind of funny here, I think, because like I said, it was after the war, and this is our funny money. It's like Monopoly money that we were using on the base there. This was 5 cents. Can you imagine using all these little pieces of paper to pay for things? And that was just a way to stop the black market off base and harming the economy of Germany as it was recovering from the war. I think we should go to another one. By the way, I found these pictures just like the last couple of days because my daughter here, who's visiting us, has been insisting and sort of hounding, I would say, my wife and I to clean out closets. And so I found this scrapbook. I hadn't looked at it for 40-some years. And that's where those postcards came from. This is my first communion that I had in Germany. We had German nuns. We actually went to a military school, had an American curriculum in the school. But in the German nuns, I think they spoke to us in German all the time, so I'm not sure if I really had all my communion information in my head like I was supposed to. You can pick me out in this picture because I'm the only one wearing suspenders and not praying. That would be me. So I wanted you to see these pictures as it relates to the rest of the story. Okay, I think we can go on. Oh, so one thing about living in the Golden Ghetto, and it's still similar these days. A lot of times Americans that are living on that base, they don't ever leave the base. They stay there because there's a chapel there, there's shopping there, the movie theater's there, their housing's on the base. But my parents were a little different. And it's funny, I didn't really reflect on this too much until this last week. But they would take us for rides along the Rhine River, look at the castles. My mom, well, it's kind of ironic in a way, I guess. Well, not ironic, but my wife and I ended up teaching in the same school district or overseas military school program that I had gone to when I was young. And my mom, to this day, she's 98, she still complains that we were living overseas all of our adult life, didn't get to see the grandkids because we were living somewhere. And she said, I don't know why you went and had to join that teaching overseas, because when we lived in Germany, all you did was read comic books when we went down looking at looking at the castles. So I think you should have the next one. You can see even the old, the photographic corners in my scrapbook. It's not a very good picture, but my parents were really good, like I said. And when I think about how young we were as three little boys, that we went to Amsterdam, they took us to Holland, we learned how to ski in Germany, down in the Alps, and anyhow, I think we go to the next one. They took us, we got around.
Oh my.
So our ultimate trip actually was when we left Germany. We drove to Naples to get on this ship. And on the way to Naples, we stopped at the Tower of Pisa, Rome, we went to the Vatican, and our ultimate goal was Naples, where we're going to get on this ship. And I don't know if, I'm also going to date myself, if you ever watched I Love Lucy, do you remember a scene where she's in the helicopter because she's coming back from Europe but she missed the ship, and the helicopter has to come and land on the ship, and she keeps coming up and down. Anyhow, that was the ship that Lucy was on, SS Independence. So, anyhow, I think we go to the next one. So, getting to Pompeii here. When we were in Naples, wait for that ship, that's not me in fourth grade, but a few years back, Jane and I went back to Pompeii because my parents had taken us as kids to Pompeii. And again, I'm thinking, Jane, it's kind of funny. Can you imagine my mom taking three little boys? No, three little boys and, around Pompeii or any of these other places that they took us to. But one thing as a kid, as I remember in Pompeii, and like I said, I was about fourth grade then, was these stepping stones. And the way the carts in Pompeii had carved ruts into the pavement there, the stone. And I had Jane take a picture of me because I'm saying, oh, I remember this from when I was a kid, you know. It was something that was very impressionable to me. Has anyone been to Pompeii? Isn't it something? I mean, it's really something. And boy, just recently, it was like right before COVID, we went with Jane there. Anyhow, let's go to the next one there. As a kid, I think what really was very impressionable too was in the museum, because you would see how people died when Pompeii erupted. You know, when the archaeologists are digging through the hard ash and lava, when they find a cavity, they fill that cavity with plaster, and that's how you end up getting the form of the person that died and how they died. And that really made an impression, almost maybe a little bit too much of an impression as a fourth grader. I don't know what my second grader brother and three-year-old brother thought about it, but let's look at the next one. So, Dog of Pompeii. This is where my presentation sort of gets going here. This was a dog that got caught in the volcanic eruption. This is how he looked here. You know, as a young child, that just always stayed in my mind for the longest time.
It's haunting.
That's the word, right? Sort of haunting, is that what you said? Yeah. Anyhow, I think we can go on to the next one. Okay, Dog of Pompeii. So, I'm going to take you back in the time machine, and we're going to go a little forward again from when I was in fourth grade. And I'm teaching now overseas in one of the schools. I don't remember if it was where we were teaching at the time, but I was asked to review some sixth grade books. I was teaching elementary. You know, because every 5 years the system would pick a new reading series. So I was going through the books, and lo and behold, one of the books that I was asked to look at had this story called Dog of Pompeii. And it was based on what you saw there in the previous picture. It's fiction, but boy, I read that story and I thought, oh, I really like this story. Now, we didn't end up adopting that book series, but I always kept that book, that sample that I was given. And what I would like to do is, after recess, when the kids come in, I always would read the kids some kind of story and, calm them down after recess. So I just really love the story. I think we can go on to the next one. Oh, I'll wait a minute. Excuse me. So that was, I don't know, in the 80s, I guess, that I found that book. I had it for about 10 years. I would read it to the kids once a year, whatever class I had. Well, fast forward now, Jane and I are teaching in the Philippines in 1991. It's April 1991. And we're on a little base, little Navy base. There was a big base. Clark Air Base was about 2 hours away. That was the largest Air Force base outside the USA. Then we had the Navy base, which was Subic, largest Navy base outside the USA. That was an hour from us. And we were at a tiny little Navy base. Basically, it was just at the time this story is taking place, or my story is taking place, it was a little place where Navy people that were assigned to Subic came and lived at San Miguel, where we were, until they could get housing down at the big base at Subic. So it was a little paradise for us, actually, a real paradise. I don't know if I should admit all this, but we just had a little on-base housing. It was nothing special. It's just a little 3-bedroom house, but we did have a housekeeper, and we had a yard boy. He polished my shoes, did the yard work, washed my car. Housekeeper took care of our little ones that were still at home. Catherine here, she was in 2nd grade at the time the story takes place. And what else, Jane? We have seamstress would come to the house and make little dresses for the girls. Oh, the nail person would come, you know, and do your manicure. Yeah, we also had a class. It was so inexpensive for us to hire to the local people. That's why we had all this domestic help. And even in the classroom, this was crazy, is that we could hire an aide even for $20 a week or whatever. We actually had
It was $12 a week.
it was only $12 a week. That's why it wasn't 20.
They had an education degree from college.
Right, the young lady that we had actually was a teacher. She was trained to be a teacher in the Philippines, but would work for us for $12 a week. Jane and I actually shared one person, but most of the teachers, you know, they had their own, and it was kind of funny too when you walked into some of the classrooms because the aide usually a lot of times was doing the teaching. I actually said I did the teaching in my classroom, but some of the teachers, I remember one of the Mormon religious fellow, he was teaching 3rd grade, I was teaching 4th, he had a sort of hotsy-totsy aide that would sit up on the desk and her legs crossed and she was teaching away, you know, but in fact I was going to mention too that all of us were pretty close as far as, it was a small school, a lot of times when I was teaching overseas I had 35 kids, or often it was around 30 kids in the classroom, but here at San Miguel I only had about sometimes only 10 or 15, and they were always coming and going. The only kids that stayed in the classroom for very long were kids of the other teachers that were there. It was kind of a funny situation too in that there was only, Jane was a female teacher, but 2nd grade teacher was a female. The rest of us were men, and they were all married to Filipino local women. Jane was from Maryland. She wasn't from the Philippines, and actually the Mormon fellow, they were from Utah. Anyhow, it was sort of, the other thing I should mention is that we were right on a beach, the Philippine Sea. Our house faced the Philippine Sea. We could, after school finished, we all walked home, we all lived on the base. We could go take the kids to the beach, it was right outside of the gate there where we lived, or take them to the swimming pool. There was a 9-hole golf course, which we did once in a while, Jane and I would do, but it was life, it was good for us.
Everybody went home for lunch?
Everybody went home for lunch at school. I would say, and dinner was prepared for us. We'd sit in our back patio looking at the sea, and I'd say to Jane, you know, Johnny Carson, if any of you know who Johnny Carson is, doesn't have it this good, you know, as far as living in Malibu, you know, I think about him in Malibu looking at the sea. And so we had it good. Well, in April of 1991, life is good, like I said, one of the mountains nearby started smoking. We didn't quite know what was happening, but they determined that this was a volcano that had been sleeping for 400 years, and it was smoking. And again, we were in a remote, this was before internet and before, I'm sure we had a telephone, but we didn't have much in the way of television, and we had no leadership, basically, on our base, because we were just the place where people lived to go back to move into Subic. Anyhow, didn't think too much about it until about the last, and we would go by this as we go visit friends up at Clark Air Base. We'd pass this mountain that was smoking. Okay, it's smoking. You know, this mountain in Mount Vesuvius, it used to smoke too, and a lot of times it just smokes and doesn't do anything. But so it's now near the end. This is April, but I'm going to move you up to June now. It's last week of school. And what's happening that we didn't know, because we're just peons, is that volcanists was warning the military, you've got to get the people out of here. This volcano is going to explode. By the way, the mountain was called Pinatubo. Mount Pinatubo, it's going to explode, and it is going to be big. And you know, of course, the military leaders are thinking, you know, we can't have all these people evacuate and then nothing happens. We're going to look really bad. But they decide, okay, the volcanists they're serious. So Clark Air Base, which was the closest, they're the ones that they had to worry. They said everybody's got to leave. So where they had to go, they considered our base a safe haven and Subic base a safe haven, but Clark was so close. So everybody, there's thousands of people, are leaving Clark, and where are they going? They end up going to Subic, and Subic, the families in Subic had to open up their houses to the people that are coming down from Clark. Well, it got to the point where things were overflowing, and these people from Subic, you know, they're coming up to our base to be housed in with us. I remember helping, just sort of door knocking. Hey, can you take people? As we were trying to get these people coming in to be safe. We ended up with 2 families in our house, a little 3-bedroom. We happened to know the 2 teachers that were from Clark. One had 2 kids, a single mom with 2 kids, and the other was a married couple with 1 kid. So we had all of us living together, and sort of like, okay, what's going to happen? You know, we didn't really know. Well, let's see. Where's where I want to go right now? Yeah,
We
so.
weren't going to school, but
That was kind of weird.
they spent the day at the beach. And got handed tons of money.
Oh yeah, the people that were evacuated, they were given all this money, you know, because they're being evacuated, they're in that situation, and they're going to the beach. And I remember the Air Force women, the officers, were so appalled with our exchange, because it was just our exchange was smaller than this place, because it didn't have a good bathing suit selection, you know. And here, you know, this volcano might be exploding. We're worrying about bathing suit selection. What was that you said?
But we continued going to school.
That was the thing that killed it. We had to still go to school. So we had all these people living in our house, but we had to go and still teach. So I think I need my assistant. I think I want my little story here. Okay, did you get my story? Okay, you guys, my story, my piece of paper. This.
CJ?
There we go. We'll do that later, okay? Okay, we didn't rehearse this, what we're supposed to do. Guys, you just came back in from recess, and I'm going to read you a little story. I'm not going to read the whole story, but I do want to read you, getting to the climax here. So in the story, what it's about is in Pompeii, this young boy named Tito and his dog, Bimbo. Now, Tito was blind, and he was like an orphan. He walked around Pompeii. Everybody knew, you know, about him from about 13 years old. And yeah, you can just wait there a second. So there he is walking around. Bimbo really took care of him and was with him all day long. They'd go to the forum. Oh, what was nice about, you know, being a teacher too, reading the story, is that you could talk about Roman architecture and what a Roman city was like as the boy's going around. He's going to the forum there. He's hearing people speak different languages, and he's hearing debates that are going on in the forum. Of course, he smells. His sense of smell is much higher than most of the kids in Pompeii. So he could tell when someone's getting ready for a banquet. And these are things that you read about in the story in the beginning. What else can I tell you about? I think I got it there. Oh, but Bimbo, he would be with the side all the time with Tito, except 2 times during the day. 2 times in the day when he'd go find some food. So he would go looking for scraps of meat, but the favorite food that Tito had was a baked good with like raisins in it. So, you know, and in fact, you might think that Tito was the master of the dog, but really the dog was more of a master of Tito, taking care of him. It was kind of like the mother and the father, and making sure he's going to be safe all the time. So I think I'll move on to the next picture. Oh, this is, in the story, they're showing Tito and Bimbo actually at a mock battle that they had in the harbor. So, okay, what I want to do now is go to a section called The End of the World, and I think you can go ahead and go to the next one here. So, they're going around, and then things are starting to go bad. let's see, here we go. It was then the crashing began. First a sharp crackling, like a mountainous snapping of twigs, then a roar like the fall of a whole forest of trees, then an explosion that tore earth and sky. The heavens, though Tito could not see them, were shot through with continued flickering of fire. Lightnings above were answered by thunders beneath. A house fell, then another. By a miracle, the two companions had escaped the dangerous side streets and were in a more open space. It was the Forum. They rested here a while. How long, he did not know. By the way, I'm reading this to my kids now because the volcano, we've been hearing about the volcano, didn't know what's going on, but I'm reading the story about the volcano. So Tito had no idea of the time of day. He could feel it was black, an unnatural blackness. Something inside, perhaps the lack of breakfast and lunch, told him it was past noon. But it didn't matter. Nothing seemed to matter. He was getting drowsy, too drowsy to walk. But walk he must. He knew it. And Bimbo knew it. The sharp tugs told him so. Nor was it a moment too soon. The sacred ground of the Forum was safe no longer. It was beginning to rock, then to pitch, then to split. As they stumbled out of the square, the earth wriggled like a snake caught. And all the columns of the temple of Jupiter came down. It was the end of the world, or so it seemed. To walk was not enough now. They must run. Tito was too frightened to know what to do or where to go. He had lost all sense of direction. He started to go back to the inner gate, but Bimbo, straining his back to the last inch, almost pulled his clothes right from him. What did this creature want? Had the dog gone mad? Then suddenly he understood. Bimbo was telling him the way out, urging him there. The sea gate, of course. The sea gate. And then the sea, far from falling buildings, heaving ground. He turned, Bimbo guiding him across open pits and dangerous pools of bubbling mud, away from buildings that had caught fire and were dropping their burning beams. Tito could no longer tell whether the noises were made by the shrieking sky or the agonized people running by. He and Bimbo ran on, the only silent beings in a howling world. New dangers threatened. All Pompeii seemed to be thronging toward the marine gate, and squeezing among the crowds there was a chance of being trampled to death. But the chance had to be taken. It was growing darker and harder to breathe. What air there was choked him. It was all dust now, dust and pebbles, pebbles as large as beans. They fell on his head, on his hands, pumice stones from the black heart of Vesuvius. The mountain was turning itself inside out. Tito remembered a phrase that the stranger had said in the Forum 2 days ago. Those who will not listen to men must be taught by the gods. The people of Pompeii had refused to heed those warnings. They were being taught now, if it was not too late. Suddenly, it was too late for Tito. The red-hot ashes blistered his skin. The stinging vapors tore his throat. He could not go on. He staggered toward a small tree at the side of the road and fell. In a moment, Bimbo was beside him. He coaxed, but there was no answer. He licked Tito's hands, his feet, his face. The boy did not stir. Then Bimbo did the last thing he could, the last thing he wanted to do. What do you think he did? He bit. Did you read the story already? He bit his comrade, bit him deep in the arm. With a cry of pain, Tito jumped to his feet, Bimbo after him. Tito was in despair, but Bimbo was determined. He drove the boy on, snapping at his heels, whirring his way through the crowd, barking, baring his teeth, heedless of kicks or falling stones. Sick with hunger, half dead with fear and sulfur fumes, Tito bounded on, pursued by Bimbo. How long he never knew. At last he staggered through the marine gate and felt soft sand under him. Then Tito fainted. Someone was dashing seawater on him and over him. Someone was carrying him toward a boat. I think you can show the next one. Bimbo, he called, and then louder, Bimbo! But Bimbo had disappeared. Voices jarred at each other. Hurry, hurry, in the boats! Can't you see the child's frightened and starving? He keeps calling for someone. Poor boy, he's out of his mind. Here, child, take this. They tucked him in among them. The oarlocks creaked, the oars splashed. The boat rode over toppling waves. Tito was safe, but he kept continually weeping. Bimbo, he wailed. Bimbo, Bimbo. He could not be comforted. So, we're going to shoot up 2,000 years later. 1,800 years passed. Scientists were restoring the ancient city. Excavators were working their way through the ancient city. The excavators were working their way through the stones and trash that had buried the entire town. Much had already been brought to light. There were statues, bronze instruments, bright mosaics, household articles, even delicate paintings had been preserved by the fall of ashes that had taken over 2,000 lives. Columns were dug up and the form was beginning to emerge. It was at a place where the ruins lay deepest that the director paused. Come here, he called to the assistant. I think we've discovered the remains of a building in good shape. Here are 4 huge millstones that were most likely turned by slaves or mules. And here's a whole wall standing with shelves inside of it. Why, it must have been a bakery. And here's a curious thing. What do you think I found under the heap where the ashes were thickest? The skeleton of a dog. Amazing, gasped the assistant. You'd think a dog would have sense enough to run away at the time. And what is that flat thing he's holding between his teeth? It can't be a stone. No, it must have come from the bakery. You know, it looks to me like some sort of cake hardened with the years. And bless me, if those little black pebbles aren't raisins. A raisin cake, almost 2,000 years old. I wonder what made him want it at such a moment. I wondered, murmured the assistant. What do you think of that story? You know, this is a story that actually I would end up crying as I'm reading it. You know, when you read the whole thing, and all the kids would be crying too. I mean, it's a tearjerker, you know. But let me tell you what happened then. I was reading that to my class, and a little boy comes to my door, and the little boy says, like second grader, he says, Mrs. Chop wants you to look out the window. That lady right there sends a message over. Let's see, I don't know. This is what we saw. The volcano, Mount Pinatubo had exploded. It really did look like an atomic bomb had gone off. And all the teachers and kids, we all just went outside of the school and we looked at this, wondering, okay, we didn't hear anything, but what's going on? You know? Then sand started falling on us. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And our secretary, you know, secretaries in schools usually run the school. Uh-huh. Well, our secretary said, our principal was not much of a leader. He said, we need to go home. We need to go home. Like I said, we all lived on base. So we went home. We all went home. I remember I grabbed Catherine, and she said, Daddy, are we going to die? I remember that. It was just, it hurts to think, you know, because we didn't know what was happening. And our other daughter, I think was in kindergarten at that time, we go home, and you know, this was about 11 o'clock in the morning. The sky went totally black. It was totally black from the sand, the ash coming down. And again, like, what's going on? We didn't know. There's no leadership telling us, hey, you know, you need to do this, you need to do that. So we're in the house, and it lasted a couple hours, and then the sun came back out. The roosters in the village right outside started crowing again like it was morning, and we look out at the sea. It was covered by ash, and everything kind of looked like a layer of snow. In fact, I think you can show the next one. There's Catherine there, our other daughter Christine, and our son Joey. They're doing the scientist in me saying, we need to do some samples here of the ash, you know? Yeah. So, what's that, CJ?
She likes to collect sand from every beach we go to.
No, from every beach we go to. And what was interesting, it didn't matter. But, so, we collected the samples, and that night, we were in bed, and all of a sudden there was this boom, 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 you know, three big booms. And then the smell of sulfur, like in the story. And, you know, so more ashes coming down. And we didn't, it kind of stopped too. Now this was the end of the school year, so I had already made arrangements to have a Filipino driver take us to Manila to get on the airplane, come back to Vermont, you know, safe Vermont. So next day, nothing, I think we were okay the next day. But of course we never went back to the classroom. But we ended up getting into the van. Oh, I remember. We had still the two families in our house, but they hadn't made the arrangements that we did. But I had made the arrangements. I remember going through all the cupboards, taking a video of everything that was in our cupboards. We rolled up our Turkish rugs that we got when we lived in Turkey, put them on top of the couches, because we were just tracking in so much ash at that point too. And I grabbed the videos that I had taken to the kids when they were babies. I put those in the suitcase, and we ended up getting that van. The van came and picked us up. We headed to Manila, and the ash is really coming down now. But we do make it to Manila, and the next day we make it out, and we're back in Vermont. We had a little place about an hour from here in Waterville. I don't know if you know where Waterville is, close to Jeffersonville, Cambridge, but it's tucked away. It's a quintessential Vermont village. Our house was next to the covered bridge and across from the steepled church, and we had the horse in the background. Somebody's horse was grazing back. And you know, it's kind of surreal because we just escaped a volcano, and we were having to adjust to life back in Vermont, in nice, peaceful Vermont, which was nice. But for Jane and I, we didn't know what had happened to our friends, what had happened back there for the whole summer. We didn't get any word. We didn't know about our jobs. Finally, I think our friends, they were evacuated and they'd made it back to the States too. And anyhow, it was a couple months of uncertainty. In fact, school had started up already, but of course not back in the Philippines, and we still didn't have jobs. But finally, they said, okay, yeah, we got a job for Jane. She's going to teach 6th grade in Japan, and I'm going to teach high school, which I had never taught before. But they sent us there. Our kids, you know, we had to get them settled in this new school. Turned out to be like 10 days of the worst days of our career teaching overseas. But lo and behold, our base had closed. Clark base had closed. The Americans just gave it back to the Philippines. You're right, you can have it. But Subic reopened. And we got jobs back at Subic, thank God. Because we had a dog, by the way. I forgot to leave out the important character. We had a dog and a cat that we left behind too. We didn't know what had happened to them.
You get another dog in Pompeii.
What's that?
You get another dog in Pompeii, kind of.
Kind of, yeah. No, we'll get to that story. I think we can show the next one. So, this is what it looked like in our neighborhood. And like I said, we did get our assignment back to Subic. We still didn't know about our cars or anything. But somehow, I don't know, did we get a van or what we did? But our base had closed, but we drove up to our base because I wanted to see if we could get on the base. Had to do some fast talking with Filipino guards now, but we ended up going to see what our house looked like. And this is kind of what it looked like after the ashfall. You can do the next one, I think. Oh yeah, this was, it was kind of like you guys could recognize, it looked like snow, right? Snow piled up, but it was just ash piled up. That was our house there. We got into the house, and we ended up losing about a quarter of our stuff. The military did come in after the volcanic eruption and packed up stuff, but Turkish rugs were gone and things were just basically stolen. Yeah, you go ahead. But we also went to our school. And this was a brand new school. It was only 1 year old. We had just had moved into it. And this is Jane looking through her stuff to see if there's anything she could get. This was her classroom there. You can see the roof collapsed. By the way, 400 people did die with this eruption. And I mean, it was a terrible devastation in that part of the area. I think we can show the next one. I think that was my classroom, which was not much better. So, you know, we lost all of our teaching materials. I did grab this book, though, you know, the book that the story was in. So this was Jane and our housekeeper just sort of walking with whatever we found. I don't remember what we had there, what you had there. But walking down the lane, and I guess you can go one more time. So we had our housekeeper was going to take care of the dog that summer, and our cat, of course, the house. But she ended up evacuating. She wasn't from the town. She lived in a village outside, but she went back to her own island. And so we didn't really know what happened to her dog, but we eventually found out that the villagers took care of our dog there. She was really, really skinny, probably living on rice. And there was one person, one of our housekeeper there, and then the people that took care of her. I think, anyhow, I say it's a happy ending there. So unlike Tito, we did find our dog, and we reunited with our dog. And we were in a nice little house there at Subic, watching TV with our dog soon after this. And all of a sudden, our dog's acting very strange, and she ends up having 10 puppies. She found a Filipino boyfriend over the summer. And we ended up with 8 black retriever type dogs, with long black hair like a retriever, and two golden retrievers out of the bunch. So I think that's the end of my story, a happy ending. So I hope you enjoyed that.
What was the dog's name?
My dog's name was Penny. Our dog's name was Penny. Yeah. And actually, do you want to assist me now? Because my grandsons here are going to walk around. You can look at some of the pumice stone that came out of Pinatubo. This didn't land on our house, but it was nearby. So there's some authentic rocks that came from Pinatubo.
Thank you, Stan.
Wow, very cool. I'm very glad that you guys were able to find the dog and that didn't end up like a Pompeii situation.
You know what? We never did find your cat.
All right, well, thank you everybody so much for coming out. Hopefully you enjoyed this. We're going to be here again in 2 weeks with some other great tales. All right, thanks everybody, and thank you so much for letting us be here. Don't forget to tip your waitress.